Happy New Year. I'm Greg Krugen in Houston.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
And I'm Rudy Koski in Austin, and this is Texas, The Issue Is.
This week in the nation's capital, elected lawmakers, old and new, have gathered for a fresh session of a now divided Congress. Among them, Wesley Hunt, a Trump-backing Houston area conservative many view as a rising star in the Texas Republican delegation. Newly elected Republican Congressman Wesley Hunt insists the deepening immigration crisis along the Texas border is a clear and present danger to America's sovereignty and security.
2.5 million people last year, about 4.5 million people total that we know of. Enough fentanyl has poured into this country to kill every American 5 times. This is flat out un-American. And what we can do in the House is make sure that we fund our border security agents. We actually build a wall and actually implement other parts of border security and actually take this seriously.
Hunt, a former U.S. Army combat helicopter pilot, is joining other GOP lawmakers who label the Mexican cartels an existential threat.
We have usurped that power to that entity, to basically a terrorist group, and we in the House have got to make sure that we take control of our border. This is a sovereign nation. We need to know exactly who is coming in and out of our country. It's our constitutional right, and we must implement it.
A veteran of the Texas oil patch, Hunt has pledged to push back on President Biden's anti-carbon policies.
Nobody is against renewable energy. We actually want to get to that next abundant and affordable clean energy source, but you cannot get there without LNG. You cannot get there without oil. We have got to stop the assault on our #1 industry, not just in Houston, but in our state. There's also an issue of national security. When we wage war against our own industry, we only empower China, we empower Russia, we empower Iran and other rogue nations. And we have got to make sure that we are the ones that can supply our own country and our allies with good, clean LNG, fossil fuel oil, you name it, because everything that we use is a byproduct of oil and energy. We've got to get this right, and we have an opportunity to do that in the 118th Congress.
Hunt says in the newly formed 38th Congressional District, inflation is ravaging family budgets, and he blames profligate government spending by Joe Biden and Democrats.
And our inflation continues to spike, and it's only going to get worse with this disastrous policies that we've seen from the Biden administration. And if you think a $1.7 trillion bill that just got passed last week is going to remedy this problem, you are sorely mistaken.
As for who Republicans should choose in their quest to regain the White House, Hunt is siding with the former president.
That's what we have primaries for. We have to let this cake bake. We'll see how it all shakes out. But right now, amongst primary voters, President Trump is up around 20 points. And we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. But I got a pretty confident feeling that it's going to remain that way, especially in the Republican primary.
With his first days beneath the Capitol dome, immersed in the contentious battle to lead the slim Republican House majority, Hunt says he's completely undaunted.
This is how our system works. Sometimes democracy is messy, but by God, this is the best system in the entire world. And as somebody that's lived in Saudi Arabia and flew combat missions in Iraq, I can tell you that the last few days, while frustrating, is better than anywhere else in the entire world.
Whew. My one-word description, intense. Stephen, what's your word?
My one word, repetition.
Okay, Rudy, lay it on us. What's your word?
Well, the easy one is messy, but I find it all ironic.
All right, let's leave it there for a moment. But please stick around. The Fox Texas Trio will be right back with an in-depth discussion. Welcome back as the Fox Texas Trio unpacks our conversation with newly elected Republican Congressman Wesley Hunt. Stephen, what, if anything, caught your attention in Wesley Hunt's statements?
I don't think it's so much of what caught my attention, but I think he does provide a new set of eyes. You know, what's been all the drama playing out this week there in Congress, and some of the new members also being a part of that. Hunt's not. He's been backing McCarthy, but I think he provides a fresh set of eyes. But I said repetition because a lot of these statements, a lot of these things he's been talking about and pushing in that interview are things that Republicans have been talking about for the past 2 years. And so, if anything, I think he provides a fresh set of eyes. And then the elephant in the room, I mean, and he is a black Republican. That's something that's not very plentiful in Congress, and so I think he'll provide new context.
Rudy, same question. Hunt stuck pretty closely to GOP talking points, but you are pretty solid at gauging nuance. Do you see him as a potentially effective voice for Republicans?
Yeah, I like what Dr. Dial had to dial in there. New set of eyes. That's pretty good. But he also could provide a possible bridge between the Never Kevins and the GOP majority after all the dust finally settles over the speaker's fight. Hunt's to-do list, it's certainly a big part of the Republican platform. So there is common ground there, but a lot of fence mending is going to have to happen. I find it interesting. The core issue in the Republican congressional meltdown is that the Never Kevin holdouts are upset that GOP leaders in the past have compromised with Democrats on legislation, which certainly is an important part of democracy and a successful government. But they have hijacked the speaker vote by demanding the GOP majority do the same exact thing, compromise with them or else. Pretty ironic, which is why that was my word earlier.
All right, Stephen, you touched on this. Hunt, in a sense, replaces Will Hurd as the only African American in the Texas GOP delegation. Any chance he could potentially help the party make inroads with black voters?
Well, participation is the start, right? It's half the battle. I think Republicans are better to try to continue to tap into the Hispanic population. Now, no minority is a monolithic voting bloc. Of course, African Americans vote majority Democrat, but I think Republicans have a better pitch to Hispanic voters than they do African American voters. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, he can help the Republican Party. Diversity is what any party should have, but I think as far as the Republican Party trying to be more of a big tent, I think they have a better chance of getting more Hispanic voters.
Okay, Rudy, back in November, Hunt was among the first to endorse Trump's bid for another presidential term. But a lot has happened in the past 7 weeks. Do you sense a softening of support?
Yeah, I kind of heard that. I didn't see it in the interview, but it sure sounded like he has a parachute with him. His comment about letting things just play out in a primary is a typical bailout plan that some politicians like to use when they're stuck supporting a candidate with a lot of problems, like Trump, who has also been at odds with the Never Kevin holdouts. Greg?
Stephen, clearly the border crisis is a core issue for Hunt and Republicans. And after 2 years in office, President Joe Biden is finally making his first visit. Will it be too little too late?
I don't think it's ever too late, but Republicans, if they control the narrative in the media, then of course they'll say it's too late. This has already been a terrible issue. It has been. No one can deny that there is not a real problem on the border. However, if he's going, which he is this Sunday, then that could be the olive branch to start a conversation. Senator John Cornyn told reporters this week that he just doesn't want it to be a photo op. He wants the president to make some tough decisions and try to work with both sides to make real change. This is the start, and like Cornyn said, it can't just be a photo op. It has to be more.
Rudy, after allowing a record 2.5 million immigrants to cross unimpeded this year alone, could Biden's El Paso visit actually do more harm than good?
Well, I agree with Stephen. This cannot be an ice cream social in El Paso. The damage certainly is done, and Biden has dug a very deep hole to climb out of, especially after saying that there are more important things going on when he was asked about avoiding the border during his recent trip to Arizona and going to that ice cream shop. More political rhetoric, more political spin, more empty promises will only help Republicans recover from their infighting, that dumpster fire up there in Congress right now.
Stephen, Rudy touched on this. Hunt downplayed the ugly intramural battle for Speaker as the intrinsic messiness of democracy. You think Americans in general are buying that explanation?
I think for those who are political nerds, they may buy it and say, yes, the political process is messy. We don't usually get to see all of the sausage being made. This week, we saw all of it play out. And Democrats, I know Republicans have been hitting them for talking about them having popcorn and blankets, but this helps the Democrats. Now, granted, this is just 1 week in time, and there's still going to be 2 years of fighting, but the Republicans will eventually get unified. This is to set an example and show that there is a problem even within the party. Democrats have the same issues. It's just the Republicans' turn to be in the spotlight.
All right, we're going to leave it there. To see this interview and others, go to our Fox Station's YouTube pages.
And keep the conversation going with us by interacting with us on our social media sites.
And next, we will look at the opening week of the Texas legislative session. Will the fight on Capitol Hill spill into the Texas Capitol Dome as Republicans bicker over the Speaker of the House and the tradition of giving some minority party members committee chairs? And remember, let us know what you think the issue is.